Hello, everybody. This is David Jerome Putnam. I'm Glass Beat Player on X, and I'm doing a podcast called Absolute Trend Spotters. And today, my guest is David Heglin from Switzerland. Hi.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Heckley. Grew up in Switzerland, spent some time in France, Isle of Man, working as an airline pilot. The rest of the time, I flew for Swiss Air, Swiss, Crossair, through all the turbulences we went through during the last years. Collected about 15,000 hours and landings, so I'm quite an experienced pilot.
But
Um,
now you're retired, correct?
I had to stop flying because of my health. I had
Mm-hmm.
trouble with my breathing and hence problems with keeping a steady blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, I felt that I'm not reliable anymore. So to me, at the moment, I don't even drive a car usually if I can avoid it because
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I can take responsibility for myself, but I don't want to put people around me in danger.
Yes,
Right.
but it's okay to drive an e-bike. You said that last
Yes.
time, huh?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
I
I usually
also
pack my bike. Yeah.
Okay, this is our second podcast. We also did another podcast a couple of weeks ago about quantum physics, Tesla energy, and UFOs. This time, what's our topic?
Yeah. I mean, last time we did in German, so this time we try another one in English. My idea was to do a podcast on climate in general, because there are many topics that are going on right now with the hurricane season in the United
Mhm.
States and geoengineering and climate alarmism and all these topics, and they're all connected. And I think today we can get a nice grab on what's actually going on.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. So I'm really like for 10 years I saw some documentaries. Why are they no why are they spraying this shit? No. I'll quickly look again. Where's the title here? Why in the world are they spraying? Was a very
Okay.
popular documentary about geoengineering or chemtrails. And the mass media always say, no, it's just contrails, but you will, of course, now give the. We also have to say you have been researching all this natural sciences since your childhood.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
I've spent probably 30,000 hours in the meantime trying to
Okay.
figure out what's actually going on,
Hmm.
be it in physics, in chemistry, biology, psychology. Um,
And before you stop, please tell me where can people find you?
Vortex.institute is my main website. And
Hmm.
same on Twitter or on our X, Vortex Institute in one word. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's look at the weather, or more precisely, the climate, and if we as humans with our new technology can really modify it, change it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Um, I think the core reason we have so many issues or topics are that people don't really understand the atmosphere. I think we need to go into the knowledge first, and then we can go broad and see why things can or can't be true and what's actually going on.
Hmm.
So Um, at the moment, we have this topic with the hurricane season in North Carolina, in the United States in general. I mean, even here in Switzerland, before that, or in Germany, we had quite heavy rainfalls, which are unusual. Nobody is debating that. It's not normal. Now we have the two camps, basically. Those that claim this is climate change and humans are responsible for that. And now you see it, how terrible that is. And on the other side, we have the skeptics, which I have to say usually are the ones correct, but in this case, they're probably not. The reason is not geoengineering or chemtrails or all these topics or HARP.
Mm.
Um, the truth is something completely different, where both camps are just completely wrong, I have to say.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. And as always, I mean, I'm just presenting what I've learned. My goal is just to find the objective reality, or to get as close as possible to the objective reality as we can,
Hmm.
while being very aware that even if we achieve the objective reality, we are not in a position to know that now we have achieved it, right? So I come here in actually a very humble attitude, because I've changed my mind probably 76 times to come here, right?
Really?
And usually the change happens in the beginning very fast, because I think, now I know what is going on. And then it switches. Oh, no, I was wrong. Tuck, 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 tuck. And then at the
Hmm.
end, it becomes small and smaller. And then I start usually to hone in on one interpretation of the data, which
Yeah.
makes most sense to me.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, from experience, that's usually when I achieve to be very close to the objective reality. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I always keep a very open mind to, if somebody presents better arguments or better data, better facts, to change again. Right.
Hmm.
Because I really just want to know the objective reality. I have no agenda.
Cool. And you mainly look at the scientific sources, the scientific papers, but not only maybe from the most famous universities. There are also some good independent researchers who are maybe
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. I try to get as close as possible to original sources,
Hmm.
uh, experiments, actual data, and stay away from data that has been already modified or interpreted,
By
or somebody
journalists or
has
so.
already
Yeah.
pre-chewed it and presents it as his opinion.
Hmm.
Always installs already a filter. I
Good.
started my journey like about 2001,
Mm,
when
already.
when I felt that the official narrative of 9/11, that cannot be true. It's just not physics.
Hmm.
It violates at least two of the laws of thermodynamics,
Yeah.
and that cannot be. If your theory violates any law of thermodynamics, it is just wrong.
Yeah.
That's very easy. So there I started to try to figure out what actually is going on, and yeah, that's where I come from.
Yeah, with me also, it was maybe 10 years later, around 2010 or a little bit earlier. First, the 9/11 didn't make sense, and then also the chemtrails was very a popular conspiracy theories, and I looked into it, and I'm still not sure what's really going on, but I look up into the sky a lot and see a
Mm.
lot of these white lines that like we see now in your background that seem to make a cover, but please explain the physics behind it.
All right, yeah, let's dive into the chemtrails.
Hmm.
It's one of my favorite topics to demonstrate a few things, and they're mostly psychological and not so much
Ah,
scientific.
okay.
Um, yeah, as you've seen in the background, that was a really nice day, beginning of September, 6th of September. You can look it up.
Hmm.
I
This
had,
year, 2024.
yes, this year.
Hmm.
Here we go. So that was taken from my garden. You see,
Yeah,
um, compared to the last picture, the sky is already a bit milky,
yeah.
right? The PC-7 team from the Swiss Air Force, by the way, they're training
Hmm.
here. I thought that's really nice. I can sit in my garden and an air show, right?
Yeah.
So I'll switch back to the static version. So you see initially sky perfectly blue. Then over the next few hours, it started to look like this, and it started spreading out, right?
Hmm.
I thought, oh, that's perfect. Now I can show and demonstrate on a real life event I just experienced what was actually going on, right? Because I don't have a picture now, but the what happened then as a next was the clouds. Actually, no, I have to look. The clouds started moving in from the
Yeah.
west, and by the evening of the same day, it was completely covered. The sky was completely covered,
But
and
these, would you say these are contrails?
these are definitely contrails. Yeah, condensation.
Condensation, you can say what's really in it, but it's from military planes or commercial planes. Yes,
These
and
are always from airliners.
airliners.
Yeah, yeah, and I can tell you as a heads up, condensation trails from air. Oh, that's really difficult to
Yeah,
uh, con
these.
contrails from airliners are always contrails. They're never chemtrails.
Yeah.
It is completely insane to claim something like that. And I can explain further in detail later on if you want to know the details. But
Hmm.
as a heads up, contrails of airliners are always contrails.
But it's not just a water vapor. It's also
Yes, it is water vapor.
CO2. It's because they burn the gas, no?
Of course. I
The
mean,
the
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 exhaust.
petroleum. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you can't see the exhaust.
Hmm.
On a day with dry air, when you have blue sky,
Hmm.
there you don't see anything. And I mean, we always burn like a car. I mean, there's nothing different.
Yeah.
CO2, monoxide, and all these small particles that come out, they're there,
Hmm.
of course.
Yeah.
But that's not what you see. What you can see is always water vapor.
Yeah.
Vapor either in steam form or the ones that stay for a very long time, then they're just the frozen
Yeah.
version, you know. It can, I mean, up there it's minus 60, minus 55 degrees Celsius.
Hmm.
So water vapor very quickly freezes up there.
And then it also stays there as a white how do you
Yes.
call it? Like a white cloud, huh? White streak.
Yeah, it's a algostratus or cirrostratus.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what we call them. And if they are frozen, then you see this rainbow shimmer through it
Yeah.
because they're like
They fracture the light then, huh? Like into a
exactly
rainbow. Hmm.
you see the rainbow diffraction of an ice crystal. Yes,
Good, yeah. Okay.
yeah. So let's see what is actually going on.
With weather modification. Or what's your next slide?
No, I want to explain what actually happened on that day. That's
Okay.
what actually was going on, right? I was actually not on that point. I was up there.
Yeah, that's about where you live.
Yeah,
Hmm. The
Norfolk,
no.
Switzerland.
Hmm.
And you see here, I put here up the 300 hectopascal pressure layer of the atmosphere on that day, because that's where the humid air came moving in. And it was just an accident that the planes flew by here and they started to create these contrails because the air got humid. So the air humidity is what changed and not the planes. The
Mm.
planes didn't switch on the chemtrails. And you can see here,
That's the different stratuses or stratusi or the different layers. Yeah.
I probably need to explain that graph
Yeah.
first. This is called an emagram. I
Hmm.
can provide you with the link where you can find it for yourself. You just find a station that is closest to you. It's basically they let a balloon climb up with sensors attached, and that balloon is then graphing all these gradients. And the most important one is the temperature, that's the red one, and the blue one is it's called the dew point. Dew point is where the humidity
Hmm.
in air would reach 100% relative humidity, and it cannot hold more than that water in that temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you would have a balloon of air that is climbing up, it's cooling slowly, 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 and the relative temperature that reaches 100% um, is what you see here in this graph, right?
Okay.
So it's Pointreuse in French, or the dew point.
Dew point, you call
Dew
it.
point curve is this one. But
Okay.
important is dew point and temperature curve and the spread between the two, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
this one. That's the difference.
Yeah.
By the way, if you have a house, in the wall of the house, exactly this process takes place as well. So if you have not a good insulation, the temperature and dew point spread will reach zero, and that's where you get water in your walls.
Mm-hmm.
So in this
From
case,
condensation.
condensation, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
That's the reason. So you
Okay.
want to have a good insulation on the outside so that the spread remains always positive and you don't reach zero. Here, in that corner is where the temperature and the dew point touch, and that's exactly where the base of the cloud forms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, on that day, there was only a very small corner where they met. On a day with a lot of clouds, the spread would be very close together for a very large area. It's really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
And the airplanes like to fly in this altitude, around 10,000 meters.
yeah, I mean, the chemtrails, or actually the condensation trails, they only form where these two curves touch.
Yeah.
And whenever you see condensation trails, you will always find in the altitude of the airplane exactly where that these two curves touch.
Mm-hmm.
That is the actual reason for the condensation trails.
Yeah.
And now we can look at it from the side. What on that day happened was actually the passing of a warm front, right? Oops. So this whole graph moves in this direction. You can imagine that you're standing here. So I was standing here, and this warm front system was passing from that side over us, right? So the first clouds you always see are these very high, thin clouds, a very thin layer, then it becomes milky, more milky, and the clouds, they're coming down in these steps,
Yeah.
right? So that's actually exactly what happened on that day. Um, the Here the condensation contrails started to form, and then the cloud got thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, and at the end was raining.
Yeah.
Now, people that are standing here and believe in chemtrails think, oh, they were spreading and spraying stuff today,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what caused all these clouds. And it's either weather modification, that's one of the interpretation of the chemtrails, or it's
Cloud seeding.
geoengineering, or it's cloud seeding.
Yeah.
And now we need to be very precise with the words. I think
Mm-hmm.
the biggest confusion comes from linguistic problems. It's basically a cognitive bias, like confirmation bias. People that already believe in chemtrails, they're very open to accept anything they find on the internet as a confirmation. See, there is proof, there
Mm-hmm.
is chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when you look around, then at some point you will find cloud seeding. But cloud seeding has never been secret except for the very first few years where they actually did try to use it. But even when I was a kid, like 5 years old, I was looking through the books of my father, it was completely open since at least 50 years. They're doing this cloud seeding, and
Also like in the Vietnam War, they
that's
surely
something
did
else
it,
again.
or even earlier.
That's
You
something
can find.
else.
Mhm.
Vietnam, I have actually a slide for that.
And I saw them in around 1977. The UN said, it's prohibited to use it as a warfare, as a war
Yes. Yeah.
method.
Yes. International
Yeah,
organizations started to talk about it, and they came to agreement like we are not making war in Antarctica, we are not making war in space, and we are
yeah,
not using weather against each other,
yeah.
right?
It's
And
because it's not just cloud seeding, it's also maybe hurricane seeding or
yeah,
creating a lot of rain, or maybe, yeah, you can tell me maybe what's
yeah. I mean,
possible.
that was one of the initial ideas they had. The idea was if we could modify the weather actually and use cloud seeding to rain off the energy of a hurricane before it hits land, that would be
Hmm.
awesome. Right? Then you don't have any destruction, and that's cool. Or if we can't do that, at least maybe we could change the course of the hurricane. Um, but they stopped doing that very quickly because they were, first of all, they were not able to actually control it. You can influence it somewhat, but how it reacts exactly is very, very complex. So, and now you imagine you're in city A and the government steers the hurricane away from you. You're very happy. But if you're in the city B that is now hit by the hurricane, those people and the insurance companies will come to the government and say, hey, you destroyed our city. So
Yeah,
you pay, you took responsibility for that, so you're going to
yeah,
pay. That's why they stopped doing that. As
yeah,
far as I can tell you, the United States don't do any weather modification anymore, as far as I can tell.
yeah. On a grand
Also,
scale, I just want to say, like last year, there was like a private company that did experiments with a weather balloon and trying to uh, put sulfur dioxide into the air and some probably make it rain. And then afterwards, the Mexican government said, we are banning all experiments with geoengineering.
yeah, yeah,
So I think many, yeah, because it can really, weather is so fundamental to the economics, and it can really create a lot of damage. So I think all
yeah.
governments are really careful that they
Yeah,
are
and
not
you
being
can't control,
experimented on. Mhm.
you can't 100% control the result of what you're doing, right? And the consequences.
Yes.
And I mean, if your country is too dry and you try to make it rain, maybe then you're stealing the water of another country, right? So
Hmm.
it's always a bit competitive or unfair competition.
Yeah.
But I know that in Dubai, they're using actively this cloud seeding
In
and they're
China,
very
surely too. They also let
China.
it rain, no, like
Absolutely.
20
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago or so. I think it was also in the papers.
Yeah, I mean, on the 2012 Olympics or something like that, or 16, they actually used that because they wanted to present themselves in the best way possible. So they
Hmm.
tried to make the clouds rain off before it hit the big cities. So the weather looks nicer in China than it actually is without doing any influence. So this is actually happening, and I'm not debating that. It's completely open. There's nothing secret about it. But the mistake happens when people say cloud seeding is proof for chemtrails,
Hmm.
because
Because
that's not true. It is not chemtrails.
chemtrails is more they're trying to poison us. They're trying to make us sick, basically, huh?
Yeah, that's another hint that there's something wrong with this religion called chemtrails. They're
Hmm.
moving the goalpost, you know?
Yeah.
When I started looking into chemtrails, and in the beginning, honestly, I didn't know. I was actually thinking, oh, there could be something to it. They actually could try poison us. There, in that time, it was poisoning us.
Hmm.
And then it disappeared. And during the COVID time, it came up again. and then it was poisoning, and between it was geoengineering, and at the moment it's geoengineering. So they're
Yeah.
moving the explanation for what it is, and that is a red flag from the get-go, right?
Or there are also people who say they're trying to take away the sun from us, the healthy sun rays that produce vitamin D. So that's also
Yes.
a
Yes.
theory that I think it's plausible. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, vitamin D is very, very healthy for us. And actually, they were taking D away from us by locking us inside,
yeah.
which was extremely stupid during the COVID time, right?
Hmm.
People should have gone to the beach and outside. That would have
Yeah.
been the best thing to improve your immune system.
Exactly, yeah.
So
Okay,
I
let's
agree.
come back to the weather. Let's not digress too much. So here you wanted to show us it's a normal, it's a natural process that it starts with these cirrus clouds, or sometimes it's the water vapor of the normal airliners, and it slowly becomes this milky cover and at the high stratus, and then it often starts raining.
Yes. I wanted to give a quick overview just to show people I did actually do my research and I did look into many, many different things. You were talking about the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
That's called the Agent Orange stuff, right?
Yes.
They did actually do that. So they modified C-130 aircraft, as you can see here, and they were
To
spraying.
defoliage, or how do you call it,
Exactly. Yeah. They were
to
defoliating the forests
yeah,
because they couldn't see the Viet Cong.
yeah.
They were always under the tree cover, so they tried to create areas where the trees are all dead and you can see the ground. So the Viet Cong couldn't move.
Hmm.
Right?
But it also
So
created later birth defects, no, with
yes,
the people
yes,
who
it
were
was
on the
very
ground.
toxic stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really, really nasty stuff. And
Hmm.
it's not allowed to use anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
It was a dirty, dirty war, the
oh
Vietnam.
yes. Yeah, yeah. And it
Hmm.
was never to be won. It was to be an indefinite war, as most wars in the later years are.
So
It's an
Dow was involved. It was quick. Can you repeat again? Can you
no,
rewind?
unfortunately,
Okay.
I can't just
But
run.
dioxin we saw, yeah, here are the
But
birth
I'll
defects.
post a link to this video. You can watch
Ah,
it.
okay.
It's very, very interesting. Very
Yeah.
good
Very shocking.
document and what happened from that. But you see, what I want to point out is all this spraying stuff. You need that to do that in very low altitude. What people don't understand is in the height of the airliners, 10 kilometers and above, it can take up to 20 years for particles to reach the ground.
Hmm.
So it's a very stupid and ineffective way to spray anything. Don't do that up there. It's very stupid.
Mhm.
And besides, the guys that, I mean, we do have people that have special interests and treat us not really nice. Um, but they wouldn't do anything that is putting themselves in danger. And by spraying the atmosphere, you do bad stuff to everybody. You can't escape that, right? It
Yeah.
will spread over the whole world.
Hmm.
So, no, it's a very dumb idea to do that. Then another one that happened last year in Florida, they were spraying against mosquitoes. That is
Hmm.
actually happening. But
Hmm.
again, it's a specially modified aircraft, and
They were
it doesn't,
spraying chemicals, or what were they
yeah,
spraying?
pesticides. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was in this special area where they did that.
Hmm.
So it is true. Yeah, some stuff happens, but you see, it's not really a chemtrail.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think yeah, it's your presentation so far has really separated the chemtrails from the contrails, and the contrails really can produce rain. It can do like cloud seeding, and the chemtrails have no relationship really with rain producing technology.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Uh, at least I've looked at thousands of uh, evidence for chemtrails. And as an
Hmm.
airline pilot and as a physicist, I have looked very, very closely at all of them. and I haven't found an actual chemtrail. For an actual if you would try to convince me there is an actual chemtrail, then you would have to show me a chemtrail that happened in an area. Where did it go? You would have to show me a chemtrail that happens in an area that has a big spread,
Hmm.
right? If you could show me a video and a printout from Flight Radar 24
Hmm.
and a printout of this emagram of the area, and you show me there's a big spread and a chemtrail, then I would start to look into it. And as long as you can't provide that, I'll say bullshit. It's not a chemtrail. It's just
Yeah.
a condensation trail.
It's I before we had the before this podcast I looked at a Arte documentary where they also talked about geoengineering,
Mhm.
and it was about the idea of lowering the temperature by creating kind of like an umbrella, kind of a cover with sulfate aerosol, similar like the volcanoes did in the
Exactly.
past.
Yes.
That where so this also wouldn't create rain, but it would create I don't know how long it will last, but for a while it will create like a umbrella, and then the temperature would lower because you're like in the shade then.
Yes. They call
Hmm.
that a stratospheric aerosol injection.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
And that is true. They're thinking about that. And a volcano that we come to just in a second actually
Hmm.
did some of that. Or
Hmm.
any volcano eruption does inject aerosol into the stratosphere. Let me get out of the way so you can read that.
So on the left we see the different layers:
Yeah, there are
thermosphere,
layers, and
mesosphere,
here,
stratosphere, troposphere. Hmm.
and here you see the temperature. So you see the temperature is going up and down while going up, right?
Aha.
And that is actually, you can think of it like the cover of a pan. The effect of the temperature inverting while going up, this has the effect like the cover on a pan to keep the steam and heat below it. So if you want to go through it, you need a lot of energy. So
It's because it's made out of different gases,
it's a natural sorting of the mixing of the different molecules of
gases, and maybe also water may
water
also.
vapor and
Hmm.
fluorides and oxides and
Hmm.
ozone. So all
Yeah,
these molecules have different weights,
yeah.
and according to the weight, they're in a different layer. And during the day, there's a lot of sunshine and turbulence, right? We have these clouds. The clouds have a lot of vertical force and they start mixing stuff. And the very big cumulonimbus clouds, they can even go a little bit through the troposphere. And that's when these huge, beautiful clouds, they form this thing on top. That's when
Hmm.
they actually managed to get through here.
Hmm.
So this amboss, we call it, that is when they manage to get through that. But usually weather only happens in the troposphere,
Yeah.
right?
But the ozone layer is also important so we don't get overheated on the ground. Not
The
really?
ozone layer is mostly responsible to filter out the hard UV light.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is UVA and UVB light is mostly filtered by the ozone layer.
And there was a panic like 30 years ago that there are holes in it because we use
Yeah.
the
FCKW,
hairspray.
yes, this expansion gas in the bottles, in the spray bottles, right?
Hmm.
And that was actually true. It had some effect. It was when it climbed up, it was eating basically this ozone layer by forming even more complex connections. And so there started to be holes in this layer, and
But
that
they,
was a
they
good
they grew together again, I think, because no one is talking
thing. Yeah.
about them anymore. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Since we have forbidden to use it as a cooling agent in fridges and that stuff,
Yeah. Hmm.
they have grown back. So that was a good thing. That was
Hmm.
actually necessary and good that we did that.
Okay.
So now back to the stratospheric aerosol injection. As I said, weather only happens below here. And airliners happen only below the tropopause. We call the layer here tropopause.
The
The reason
airliners are below or in
is
inside the troposphere.
the whole flying and the whole weather stuff happens in the troposphere, only in the lowest part.
Also the military airplanes.
Yes. The
Okay.
only planes that make it up there are rockets.
Okay.
And maybe very specialized, like a U-2 or so, they can go up there.
Hmm.
And maybe the military spy planes, right? Or the satellite planes. So
Satellites, huh? Satellites are in the thermosphere or exosphere.
they, they're even above
Okay.
700. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the like, let's do like that. The Starlink satellites from Elon Musk, they're around in that height.
Okay.
And he made it especially in that height that if they fail, they start to descend slowly and evaporate. So that is by design, because if you put it above that, they can stay in orbit forever,
Okay.
theoretically. Or if they have collisions, it gets dangerous. So it's much safer to keep them down here, so they will destroy themselves if there's any problem, or if they run out of fuel.
Hmm.
So now this stratospheric aerosol injection, it would have to happen in this layer here, right? And so to claim that anything with chemtrails has something to do with that is just stupid, because chemtrails are always below. The reason for
The
that
the
is
contrails, not the chemtrails.
chemtrails. Well,
Or
yeah,
or if you do like in Vietnam
as far
the
as I'm
Agent
concerned,
Orange.
yeah, there's something else. As far as I'm concerned, it's always condensation trails, contrails,
Hmm.
and not
Okay.
chemtrails. I haven't
Yeah.
seen an actual chemtrail in my life, other than the exceptions we discussed before, right? But they were all in low altitude. So the reason we don't fly into the stratosphere with airlines is this: the temperature starts to rise again. And for the efficiency of an aircraft, lower temperature is better. So it doesn't make sense to go higher because the efficiency decreases for an airliner, right? Reminds me of another thing. People claimed today they see more chemtrails than when they were children, which is true. The reason for that is um, the pressure cabin of airliners was not that great. They couldn't sustain such a high differential pressure because just the material science wasn't there. So we were flying around flight level 280 max divided by three. It's, yeah, 9,000 meters, right? Now with the much better pressure cabins, we can fly much higher. And we can get very close now to the most efficient point, which is at the tropopause, which is like flight level 400. So that's 12 kilometers. And of course, up there, there's way less weather, way less turbulence. So the condensation trails, the contrails, they stay much longer up there, and the temperature is much lower. So they usually freeze and they can sustain much longer. That's the
There are
reason.
not much turbulences or wind there.
Yeah. The
Hmm.
tropopause functions, as I said, like the pan on a cooker.
Yeah.
Right? Everything above that is very calm. If you fly up there, there are almost no turbulences. While down here, you have all the time, you have clouds and turbulences and harsh
Hmm.
things. That's another reason we try to fly higher. And of course, there are way more airliners flying today than like just 30 years ago. 30 years ago, it was a luxury to fly.
Hmm.
Today, everybody flies for a weekend somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So the airspace is used way more dense, and alone from that, we needed to go higher to avoid congestion. because you need a safety bubble around an airliner at all times, which is 5 miles or 8 kilometers in diameter, right?
Yeah.
You can stack them like 300 meters apart in pressure layers, but if they're on the same altitude, they need to separate by 8 kilometers or 5 miles. And now that's another thing that very often is brought up as a proof for chemtrails is when you see this chessboard uh, thing in the sky,
Yeah,
right?
like a grid, I think you call it.
It's
Like
it's always the perfect grid, right?
yeah.
That's very easy to explain. There can be two reasons. One reason is airways are being organized in parallels and usually
So
90
so
degrees.
they don't collide.
So we don't fly into each other. And they're usually stacked in 500-meter steps or in 300, depends on which altitude. And that, of course, immediately creates this chessboard pattern.
Yeah.
So that's one reason. Or you can imagine an airway over a point is fixed. And the airway will be always there. Now, if you have a strong wind, let's say there's an airway crossing, right, in one point in sky. That one is fixed to the ground. But the air masses, if you have a frontal system passing by, I mean, weather is usually moving in some direction. And now you imagine that has quite a high wind speed, and we have humidity in the air. So planes that fly along these airways leave a condensation trail. But if the air mass keeps moving over that point, the airplanes are stacked temporarily as well. So you imagine you have one, and now the condensation trail moves away. Now the next plane comes, the condensation trail moves away, next plane comes. And
Mhm.
now you have a very regular frequency because planes are stacked usually, let's say, in 5 minutes. And over time, this creates also this pattern,
Yeah.
right? So there are two possibilities how to create these patterns.
And the commercial air flights, airlines have increased in the past decades. Do you know
Yes.
how many airplanes are being fly around per day?
Oh, I haven't looked it up. The number that comes to mind is
Yeah, please.
30,000. It's
About
30,000
30,000. Like at a documentary, it says it's maybe already 100,000 per day
already. Wow. Okay.
globally.
Yeah.
So probably it wasn't like that 30 years ago, 50 years
Not at
ago.
all.
There is more water vapor, maybe also CO2, you can say. Can you quickly summarize what's your opinion on the climate change? Is the globe really getting hotter and hotter, and the consequences will be disastrous, like a lot of floods, a lot of I don't know, a lot of droughts, maybe people are fearing.
Yeah.
What's your opinion, your research?